join me back for part 2 for something pretty amazing, I must say. This amazing model shows old London Bridge, which went from Southwark on the opposite side of the river to this side of the river. And it was as busy and chock-a-block like this, so. The level of detail in this model is absolutely stunning. Trumpeters on there. And London Bridge itself had a church actually on the bridge, as well as all these houses, which you can see the front side of there on the church. And the church served a double purpose. The top side of the bridge served the people going across the bridge, and underneath, which we'll see in a minute, served the rivergoers, who would either pray for a safe journey or give thanks for one. You can see little people poking out of their windows. We would have definitely found old London Bridge an eye-opener, that's for sure. Side. And this model was entirely made by one man. This bridge is what caused the Thames to freeze over years ago and caused the ice spheres, because the trunnions at the bottom there were so narrow they slowed the course of the water, so it allowed it to freeze. And at high tide you would have to literally run the rapids, and a lot of people were drowned and killed like that, and many people refused to go through them when it was like that. And here we see, look, the chapel, and it had a bit to serve the people from the river, and a bit at the top to serve the people from on the bridge. Old London Bridge, circa 1400, model by David T. Agate, liveryman, the Worshipful Company of Plumbers. So don't forget, this is a guild church, 1987. Anyway, this is absolutely amazing. I think it was all made by one man. It really is an incredible thing, this. Oops. That's amazing, look. The Waterman's Chapel at the bottom. And that's where you'd get into it there. And if you look very, very carefully and closely, and zoom in, you can see the heads of traitors on spikes stuck on London Bridge. That's what they used to do with them. They used to stick up their heads on spikes, which is nice, isn't it? Yeah, and you've seen the model. Obviously we can't take you back to 1400 to the real thing, but I can take you to the next best thing. So join me for that. And the medieval London Bridge and medieval City of London video that you've just watched is the world that this man would have known. My favourite historical Londoner, Samuel Pepys. We know a very great deal about pre-Great Fire of London because of this man, and he led a very interesting life. And this, what you're going to hear and watch now, features in our video because the Great Fire of London, which started not too far away from our church in Pudding Lane, swept pretty much most of the old medieval city that Samuel Pepys knew away. And the other reason that this features in the video is because our church features in what we're about to hear. So, let's listen to Mr. Pepys, shall we?
September the 2nd, 1666. Some of our maids, sitting up late, called us about 3 in the morning to tell of a great fire they saw in the city. So I rose and slipped on my nightgown and went to the window and thought it to be on the backside of Mark Lane. But being unused to such fires, I thought it far enough off, and so went to bed again. About 7, rose again to dress myself, and by my maid Jane comes to tell me that 300 houses have been burned, and that it is now burning down all Fish Street by London Bridge. So I to the tower, and there got up upon one of the high places, and there I did see the houses at that end of the bridge, all on fire. So down with my heart full of trouble to the lieutenant of the tower, who tells me that it began this morning in the King's Baker's house in Pudding Lane, and that it had burned St. Magnus's church and most part of Fish Street already. I to Whitehall, and there up to the King's Closet, where people came about me, and I did give them an account, dismayed them all, and word was carried in to the King. So I was called for, and did tell the King and the Duke of York what I saw, and that unless His Majesty did command houses to be pulled down, nothing could stop the fire. They seemed much troubled, and the King commanded me to go to my Lord Mayor from him, and command him to spare no houses, but to pull down before the fire everywhere. Thus I returned to do the King's bidding with a sad heart. Thence we to a little alehouse on the bankside, and there stayed till it was dark almost, and saw the fire grow, and as it grew darker, appeared more, and in corners and upon steeples, and between churches and houses, as far as we could see, up the hill of the city, in a most horrid, malicious, bloody flame.
And the fire did indeed take hold in the King's Baker's house, Thomas Farriner, Pudding Lane, in the early hours of the morning. And what a blessing it must have been to Thomas Farriner when the mentally unstable Robert Hubert later came along and claimed to have thrown a fireball through a window through which a fireball couldn't have possibly been thrown. So the real culprit of the fire was Thomas Farriner, and more than likely the carelessness of not raking out his ovens properly at night time. The fire took hold and was first noticed by a journeyman staying in the Farriner's house. By the time the alarm was raised, the Farriners couldn't get past the stairs, so they had to climb out onto the roof. Their maid, Jane, was the fire's first victim because she was too scared to jump down. By the time the alarm was raised elsewhere, it had taken hold, and it was one of the driest summers London had ever known. So that's what really took the fire from this, basically, to raising more or less an entire city. Tinderbox dry London, and the poor fire equipment that we've seen in our part of the video. And Thomas Farriner, he appears here in the half tax for Pudding Lane by the blue arrow, and you can see that Thomas Farriner has 5 hearths. Obviously, being a baker, he would have needed quite a few fires, one of which caused the fire. He rebuilt, stayed in Pudding Lane, and he died just 4 short years after the Great Fire of London in 1670, and is buried in St. Magnus the Martyr church in the central aisle in an unmarked tomb. So that's where I'll take you to now, to the grave of the real culprit of the Great Fire of London, Thomas Farriner. So join me back in the present for that. And here we are, the burial entry for Thomas Farriner from Find a Grave. which is a great website for family history and of course for finding graves. Mark Magnus, credit for this one. Thomas Farriner, born 1616, died in 1670, aged 53 or 54. St Magnus the Martyr, and plot below central aisle, unmarked. And there we are. Now join me back in the present where we can see roughly where he's buried. Welcome back. Hope you all found that interesting. And the central aisle here, somewhere under this lot, is where Thomas Farriner, the true cause of the Great Fire of London, is buried. Because you've got these big stones, and most of these are all 18th and 19th century, but then you've got these little ones that run along the edge. But as you saw from the little thing from Find a Grave, Thomas Farriner is unmarked, but buried here. So yeah, that's Thomas Farriner. And now, while it's empty, because it was a bit busy earlier, the Baptistry, I can give you a proper look at that. Its font. And look, you've got up there benefactors to this parish of St Magnus, AD 1640. £8, Mrs. Susanna Chambers, of her last will and testament, bearing date of 28th of December 1640, gave the sum of 22 shillings and sixpence yearly for the sermon to be preached on the 12th day of February in every year within the Church of St Magnus, in commemoration of God's merciful preservation of the said church, St Magnus, from the ruin by the late and terrible fire of London Bridge. Likewise annually to the poor the sum of 17 shillings and sixpence. And over here you've got, look, AD 1683, so this is the rebuilding of the church after it had been burnt. Mr. Deputy Smith and Mr. Deputy Collett gave £10 towards the rebuilding of the altar. AD 1683, Captain William Richardson, Mr. Henry Freeman and Mr. Thomas Passenger, they gave the font. This lovely font that you see there. AD 1700, Sir Charles Duncombe, Knight and Alderman of Bridgewald, gave the clock and dial to the whole cost, amounting to £184, 5 shillings and 4pence. So that's interesting, isn't it? And if you look at the top of the font cover, the Dove of Peace, see the wire that goes from there up into the ceiling. Like many other London font covers, it will be weighted, and you like a weight and put like sash windows in a way, but with fonts, and you can lift the covers up fairly easily. So we say goodbye to the Baptistry and its benefactors of the church. Also to Thomas Farriner, the cause of the Great Fire of London that lies underneath the central aisle of this church. And it's had a lot of repairs over the years. This church was repaired and beautified 1886. And on the opposite side it's got the same thing as well. Look, this church was repaired and beautified 1924. Sorry. And the carving on the wood is absolutely stunning in this church, it really is. As I'm often saying, we're lucky to have these places. Look at that. That's gorgeous, that really is lovely. Sorry.
Which detail you'll capture?
Lovely detail, and that's the stairs that will take you up into the organ loft, which is obviously a restricted area. And you can, from this side, you can see this stained window really well. So I'll photograph that while I'm here. That's one of the old ones, look, 1670 something. That's very interesting. Lovely, and look at these beautiful stairs, look. A spiral staircase that goes up into the organ loft. And I've heard this organ played. I covered this church when I first started the page, and it was very, very interesting. Down there is the crypt, but they're cleared out, a lot of the crypts, and I think they just use it for storage and things like that. So yeah, I've just been told by the vicar the crypt has been well cleared out and has been turned into their kitchen and utility area, so, and he's just popped down there to make himself a cup of tea, so that's fair enough. And I think we've seen quite enough of the church, haven't we? But I have a little surprise for you yet. You will join me back here later on in the evening outside for something pretty nice, so I hope you'll all enjoy that. Off we go, and join me back outside later on. Me again, and I was just advised to point out, see the old bread cupboards, look, and they're not real loaves of bread, they're artificial ones, but they've got the loaves of bread in there just as they would have been years ago. You know, the arms and on the dole, this is where that all comes from. So yeah, that's a little something to point out. In loving memory of William Petter, 1982-2016 musical director of this church, beloved father, husband, son, brother and friend. And then you've got all the information here about the bells from the church. Now you'll join me back outside later on and for a little something special. Okay. Any minute now you should hear the bells chime 3 o'clock. Then we'll cross back over, get some more exterior views. Join me back over the road. I brought us back at night. Rickshaw. Or in the evening, and it looks lovely with its windows all lit up. London Luke had other things to do and other places to see in the meantime. Oh my gosh, it's so pretty. I do like a church all lit up in the evening. Well, you heard the bells chime 3, and now I've dragged ourselves back at around 5 o'clock. The church is closed. It closes at 3 to the public. But as you can see, they've got an event or something going on inside because it's all lit up. So yeah, very nice. Join me over the road where we'll get some more views and something nice. We have crossed the road safely without getting killed by any horseless carriages. That's the monument you're looking at there. Take you to the church. Oh, it's cold. See, there's work going on. Maybe that's why the lights are still on inside. They could be doing stuff inside. We're on Lower Thames Street at the moment. I'll keep you pointed up because people are coming along. The best is yet to come, so never fear. We're going around the back part of the church. Once upon a time, these windows here would have been complete like the ones you see on the opposite side inside the church. Wartime damage, which you can see here, when a bomb landed on Lower Thames Street, blew all the windows out, and the repairs are these windows. But even before that, because you can see the wartime damage on this, these windows were blocked up a long time before the Second World War as part of the window tax, when they charged every building, including churches, tax on how many windows they had. So that's why you see a lot of old houses, churches and buildings like this with their windows bricked up. And apparently it caused a big spout of rickets and things because in homes, because the children weren't getting enough light. It's literally like what you say, oh, the government will tax the air. Well, they've taxed soap, windows, hearths, you know, like your fireplace, your hearth tax. You was taxed on how many of those you had, so people who were poor had to even brick up their chimneys and couldn't keep warm. But yeah, this, like a lot of the London churches that we have visited before, it bricked up a lot of its windows to avoid a lot of the tax. This is its little vicarage. Look, and it sits in the midst of the modern world. But as I say, the best is yet to come. Without falling down the stairs, take you down this way. I'm pointing you down for a reason, because there are other things, real mighty fine and pretty things, I want to show you that are behind me. And look, these windows all lit up at night. Oh, and it's gorgeous. Very nice. Cold, but nice, so I'll say that about it. Yeah, that's its bell tower. And I shall turn this round and show you what I wanted to show you. Remember the bridge? Hope you all enjoyed that. Our little look back into the past, and another 3D kind of simulation of what the bridge would have been like. The old bridge. But here you see modern London Bridge. The old bridge was taken down in the 1830s, 1831 I believe, and another London Bridge was put in its place. That, in its place then, was then sold to the Americans, who thought they were buying Tower Bridge, but they didn't. They bought London Bridge, and I believe it's on some kind of golf course or complex thing in America somewhere. But yeah, they thought they were actually getting Tower Bridge, and they replaced the old stone bridge, which had a bit of character, with this, which doesn't. It has no character and very few redeeming features. And then you see, look, Tower Bridge, what the Americans thought they were getting, bless their little cottons. Over there, the old London Bridge Hospital.
It's probably gonna rain. Should we take our umbrellas?
Look, the Shard, reefed in clouds, because it is very cold and cloudy and misty today. Yeah. I'll turn this back round. Not quite yet. Where the trajectory of the old London Bridge would have gone, the church that we've just visited, that played a massive part of it. That's why the model of the bridge is inside the church, and why I showed us the simulation of old London Bridge. But yeah, back to our church and what we came here for, St Magnus the Martyr Church, and now for a historical look back with some old images. Hope you're all going to enjoy it. Hope you all enjoyed the tours, part 1 and part 2. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one. And here we are, the St Magnus the Martyr of Wren's era, as it would have looked newly up in his time. A little block print here. Slightly later image, but it shows a different prospect of the church. I like these old prints. Here's its spire, shown in the 18th century. Joseph Mallard William Turner, London Bridge with the monument and the Church of St Magnus the King and the Martyr, 1794 or 95. And interesting, look, you can see Old London Bridge and its water mill that was at the end of the bridge. And the bridge literally did go right through what we now think of as St Magnus the Martyr churchyard. You can see its clock tower there and the monument in the background. Great portrait, this one. This is a later image from 1808, and this really shows us well the prospect of the church and bridge. You can see the church there, and the bridge literally runs right through its churchyard, right next to it. If you had gone under the arch that would take you inside the church nowadays, you could have walked straight along the footway of London Bridge. Thomas Shotter, Boys, 1803 to 1874. The Church of St Magnus the Martyr and London Bridge. And you can see the old trunnions of the old London Bridge, which had been taken down, the wooden bits. And over to the right you can see the newer London Bridge. So that's a little interesting factor. The original of that image, which is a print showing the church, the monument, London Bridge steps. St Magnus the Martyr. This is on December the 1st, 1838. Nice accurate date there, wasn't it? This is late 19th century, a portrait, and it shows the busyness of London Bridge. And as you can see, from this point, the old London Bridge is well gone, and the London Bridge, not the one we know, but it's in the position that we know it nowadays, with St Magnus the Martyr over to the right a little bit. Post-war, it shows the reconstruction of really everything that had been burned, bombed and damaged during the Second World War. Hope you all enjoyed this. Thanks very much for watching. See you all on the next one.